Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the beautiful Danae, otherwise known as Not Just Horror. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Life gets to you at times, but I'm really happy to be here. And thank you again for asking me. I'm really excited to talk about our topic today.
Oh, no, I was so excited when you said yes. I was able to catch one of your live streams, and I loved your energy. I loved what you were doing. And I was like, wow, I think that she's really got a good head on her shoulders. I would really love to see how horror started for her. And that's why we're here. But before we get into how it started for you, I want to introduce you guys to Danae a little bit. If she's not working, you'll see her out at the movies, thrifting for VHS tapes, attending horror conventions. She does love all genres of movies, but horror is kind of her mainstay, most important one. Other interests include reading comics, writing, and painting. But with not just horror, what gave you the inspiration to really start doing this on Instagram to kind of like put your love of the genre out there for everybody?
Yeah, so there's kind of a little bit of a backstory. My name actually used to be My Life with Horror for like the longest time. And, as I was like discovering myself as like Instagram platform and connecting with people, I realized that I really shouldn't just connect myself to just the horror genre because a lot of my friends, if you know me, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I love comedies. I'm like basically a nerdy person. I like anything from Marvel, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. So that's kind of where the username came. But like I always find myself going back to my roots with the horror genre. So it's just kind of stuck with me since, and just projecting my love for it, connecting with people. It's just one of the best things about the genre.
Oh, the people are definitely the best thing. I've said this on the podcast numerous times. So I'm sorry for people that are repeat viewers that have to hear this again, but it really is such an inclusive community. We don't care if you're gay, straight, LGBTQ, black, white, Democrat, Republican, Russian, Ukrainian. The minute you want to talk about horror, let's talk horror. We're so in. Everybody loves everybody in this community. And I think that that's so wonderful that we can look past what differences we do have and just agree on the similarities that we do have. And I think that that's such an amazing trait in the horror comedy. Sure, you get your fair amount of gatekeepers and douchebags, but you get
Oh
those
yeah.
everywhere. So, and I have a whole lot of female friends that are big influences in the horror genre. And I know how hard it can be for you guys to try to be content creators and work as hard as you possibly can on your content. And then just have people
Yeah.
talk about how beautiful you are. So
Oh
I
yeah.
get that side of the coin too. So have you ever thought about expanding from YouTube or from
I've
Instagram? I mean,
I've actually recently have been thinking about like a podcast or possibly YouTube. I know I have a friend, New England Homophobe. He's on Instagram. He also branches out to YouTube, but he does his podcast where he does like a video live stream and also does audio. So that's something I've been debating on, and it would probably would go hand in hand with the name I have. So I wouldn't do just the horror genre. I would do like all the other stuff I'm interested in and everything. So it's definitely been thought about before.
well, if you end up doing that, everybody watching, you don't have to wait for me to update you because her Instagram link is down here in the description. So make sure you're giving her a follow on Instagram. So that way, when she does start that podcast, because I know she will because she's got the great mind to do it, you guys can follow right along and be there for the inaugural episode. So, in order to fall in love with horror, Danae, it has to start for you somewhere. So
Oh
now
yeah.
I want to go back to the past and talk about
Oh
what got you
man.
started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Danae,
Oh
your first horror movie
yeah.
was.
It was Jaws from 1978. Oh my gosh. I remember when I first saw that. I know. I'm still waiting for the NECA figure of Bruce
Right.
to come out, and I'm like, where's this guy coming in?
Yeah.
I don't have all my stuff out, but I was like, maybe I should whip out stuff from my collection to show everyone how like unhealthy of my obsession is with Jaws. And I love the shirt you have, by the way. Is that the Fright
Oh, thank
Rags
you.
one?
Yes.
I love
Yes.
that. That's like the cruise shirt I think that they wore on set, or at least from what I recall.
Yeah, I love Bennett Fright Rags. He's a great guy, and I love the product they have. They're an absolute amazing. If you guys haven't checked out Fright Rags, you should also do that. Some of my favorite clothing in the horror genre. So, Danae, do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen Jaws?
I was a whopping young age of 4 years old, and I was definitely not allowed to watch it at the time, but I still did it, and I regretted it at the time, but I'm thankful that I did now.
Right. Well, what
Oh
this is
yeah,
a great start, and I've often heard the argument that Jaws is not a horror movie, and that to me is just
yeah,
absolutely insane. Like,
it it is, yeah.
oh, it's totally a horror movie, like 110% horror movie. Do you remember who you were with the first time you had seen it?
I remember we were just moving in. Well, we were getting our house built from where I used to live, and they had the movie set downstairs, like the VCR and all. And we went to Blockbuster, and of course, we rented Jaws. I remember not being allowed to watch it, but because I was such a young age, there was toys and everything. They didn't think I was paying attention. And of course, I turned around at the right time when I saw Alex Kittner getting eaten by the shark, and that's what did it all. And my eyes were glued to the screen since.
That's awesome. And what a
Oh
scene to
yes.
catch.
Oh yeah. Like I didn't want to go to the beach like for the longest time because like not that long before that I had a scare at the beach where I thought I was going to drown. And then after seeing that, I'm like, no, I definitely don't want to go to the beach ever again.
That's why I was drowning. It was that damn shark.
Yep.
So and this may be the one that it was, but I was just about to ask you, which scene was it from Jaws that affected you the most?
I feel like the big scene for me, there's actually a few scenes. I mean, the number one season for me, that really like caught my eye was like when, Brody sees the shark for the very first time, on the orca. And then, he says the very famous line.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
And that's just what really like drew me in, like to rewatch it after again and again. Just how like everything was just done about the film was just remarkable. Have you seen the making behind Jaws? Like on the
What was that?
Blu-ray set? Did you ever see the making of Jaws like on the Blu-ray that was recently released?
No, actually, I still have the
No.
DVD copy. I still need to upgrade to Blu-ray on Jaws.
Oh, okay. Well, you definitely should watch it because there's a lot of interviews with Steven. I believe Richard Dreyfuss is on it. Sadly, we don't have Robert Shaw or Roy Scheider, but it's definitely something really cool to watch to see like how certain scenes played out and mentioning like those famous lines that we're talking about.
Oh, another famous line that I absolutely love.
Smile, you son of a...
You're going to need a bigger boat and smile, you son of a bitch, are the two that I've said probably throughout my life the most from this film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was just so many iconic moments to happen in that. And I remember like when I was really looking into like the documentary and like interviews and stuff, apparently that Alex Kittner scene I remember was supposed to be a lot more bloodier than it was supposed to be. That's why I'm
Uh,
like, oh man, if I saw the bloodier version, I definitely probably wouldn't be able to watch it again at that age.
and it's funny because you can actually find the pictures online now of Bruce the Shark getting Alex. And
Yeah.
I think that's insane. Like, but
Those
I
are
love the fact that they
haunting.
had so many technical difficulties with the shark because it's less is more with this movie. And that's something that I think is absolutely
Absolutely.
phenomenal.
Absolutely. I agree. Because, like, you see all these shark movies now, and they're mostly CGI. There was only one movie in recent years that I heard they actually used, I wouldn't say it's mechanical shark, but you could see, like, I think I recently just saw the pictures today. I think it was called The Requiem. It's with that Alicia Silverstone.
Okay.
There was apparently a shark using that where it wasn't completely CGI. They showed like pictures of the guy like throwing touch-up painted on it, and I was like, wow, like it's taken how many years to use a mechanical shark since the Jaws films? It's
Right.
crazy. It really is.
Well, and Jaws is such an influential movie on a lot of different levels. We talked about which scene it was that affected you the most, but what would you say your favorite scene from Jaws was?
Oh, my favorite scene was basically the part where they're all talking about their stories on the boat, between Quint and Shaw. That's just the dialogue between those two and the interactions were just like mesmerizing. I wish I could remember it word for word, but like I
Right.
always love to watch that part. It's my favorite.
And the fact that they were actually like drinking while they were doing that is so insane to me.
Yeah.
So another question I have,
Yeah.
remakes are a part of our lives. It's just something that we have in our lives now. Is Jaws a movie that you would like to see remade today?
Oh man. I already know the answer is definitely not. There was
Right.
a rumor I heard that Steven Spielberg was potentially going to be a producer for a remake, but I don't know if that got hashed. I'm not sure. I feel like you need the right people. I know that there is a play adaptation with Robert Shaw's son, like in UK or something like that. Like now, if they can get those guys in the movie, then I would be interested. But
Right.
I'm concerned about that shark situation and how they would play it off.
I just don't want any CGI sharks. That's my thing.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
that's where I'm at with this. So another thing, this is obviously a part of the franchise. You have Jaws 1 through 4. This is a silly question, but I gotta ask, because whenever we talk about movies that are part of a franchise, I do ask,
Yes.
what is your favorite film in the Jaws franchise?
Oh, well, it's definitely number one. I could tell you my least favorite's Jaws the Revenge, just because the storyline is just so ridiculous, and I don't even know how believable that could even be. Like the shark traveling all the way over to, like, what was it, the Bahamas or something? I was just
Listen,
like,
if
oh.
I want that, I'll watch Finding Nemo. Okay,
There
if
you
I want an unbelievable
exactly.
fishtail, that's what I'll watch. So Danae, I'm going to be honest with you. I love Jaws, and I love the fact that I got to sit here and talk with you about Jaws and how amazing this movie is as your first horror movie. But now I got a curveball I want to throw you here for a second, love. My little buddy Ghostface has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Danae? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Wow. So I used to always tell people it was Silence of the Lambs, and this is only my second time ever going on, like, talking podcast wise. And the first one I ever did, we talked about my favorite horror movie, which is Silence of the Lambs. There was a big discussion whether or not it is a horror movie, because it's really considered psychological thriller in a way. But I've always said it's that movie. But I would say in recent months, my love for the Scream franchise kind of went up a notch ever since the release of the new one. Now, I didn't really care for the new one as much, but Scream has always been my number two, but recently it's now my number one. So Ghostface does know my favorite scary movie because he is in it.
There you go. And
yes.
you know what? 'Cause I can't say much because the movie just got released on physical media, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it. But
yeah, absolutely.
I did in Scream 2022. I loved the kills. I thought the kills were great. As everyone knows, one of my all-time favorite movies is Psycho, and I thought there was a really, really good homage to Psycho in the movie. But it was quite predictable, was the problem I had with it. Of all the Scream Ghostface killers, this one was the one I called out pretty early, which bummed me out, you know. And there was a moment in Scream 2022 that legitimately made me cry, and it was not during a death. And I don't think this is really spoilery at all, but there's a scene where Dewey and Gale reconnect for the first time, and they're having a conversation with each other. And I really felt like that conversation was not Dewey talking to Gale. I felt like that conversation was David talking to Courtney. And it just broke my heart. Like, I'm watching the scene, and Ashley looks at me. She's like, "Are you crying?" I was like, "No, you're crying. Leave me alone. Go away." So I mean, like, I am a big fan of Scream 2022. I'm very excited to see where the franchise goes.
Oh yes, me too.
I think I may be the only person on the planet that is anti bringing back Stu Macher. But I just honestly, and look, I love Matthew Lillard. I loved him in Scream. I loved him in Salt Lake City Punk. I loved him in Scooby-Doo. I've loved Matthew Lillard for a long time, but we would have known by now if the guy was alive. Somebody would have mentioned Stu by now. So it's just, you can't subvert my expectations that much.
Of course.
So with Scream being your favorite horror movie, and I do want to go back real quick before we go back into Scream. Silence of the Lambs is totally a horror movie. Like 100% a horror movie. Like that third act, like and then when he's in the ambulance, like, oh my gosh. Oh,
that scene
total
alone.
Horror movie. Total. Like, it's such a good movie. But with Scream, what do you think it was that really pushed that above the Silence of the Lambs?
I feel like, you know what it is? I'm a 90s baby. So that was a big movie for me at the time growing up. It was also another movie. It was one of my first movies as well, was after Jaws. So, and there's just something about like a franchise that you can relate to sometimes. Maybe it's whether the times you grew up, the things it reminds you of when you were growing up as a kid. So there's just something about maybe the characters and how they're connected through all this trauma after movie is what makes me drawn to this franchise so much, because they also have this like togetherness about them between the main three, you know, Sydney, Gale, and Dewey. And that's just something I really like, because you don't really get that with all these other franchises like Friday the 13th. It's new batch. Same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street, all these other franchises. So I think that's why, especially the first one, why I really enjoy it so much, because it also picks on the genre that I love so much too. And not every movie can do that without having too much comedy. It was well balanced in my opinion.
Sure. And what I love about it is, like you just said, how do I want to word this? In other franchises, the main focus is usually the villain, not the heroes. Now, in Scream, it's the opposite. Your main focus is your heroes. You have the same villain, but it's a different villain in every movie, if that makes sense. You always have the same ghost face, but it's always someone different under that mask. Where the other movies are always focused on the villain and how they're going to die and who they're going to kill throughout it. In the Scream franchise, you've always been focused on Sidney Gale Dewey, watching our main protagonist survive. So Scream, while it is the same in the slasher genre, it is also very different in the slasher genre, because you can make the argument of, well, Halloween had Jamie Lee Curtis. Halloween also killed her off like 3 different fucking times. Okay.
That's
you
true.
can make this, same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, yeah, you had Nightmare, you had Heather Langenkamp in 1 and 3. They brought her back in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. She still died. You've never had that final girl. I mean, with the exception maybe of Evil Dead, you had Ash, your final guy, that made it all the way through. But that's a lot less of a slasher and more of a supernatural horror movie. So with the slasher genre, it's very, very hard to find a film, a franchise of films, where you're constantly rooting for the same hero or heroine over and over again. So I think that's where Scream really, really knew what it was doing. And I'm very excited for Scream 6. I think Scream 2022 would have been a very good stopping point.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
We'll see what happens. So I've had an amazing time with you. This is so
Thank
great.
you.
I would love to get with you
Appreciate it.
again sometime soon.
Oh,
But before we
anytime.
go, I want to go back to Jaws here for a second.
Oh,
And what we're going to do is we are going to rank our little buddy Bruce here on a skull count. Now, what we're doing, we're not going to be ranking this movie on production, quality, score, cinematography, nothing like that. What we're doing, we're not being critics. We're going to judge this movie strictly on how much it affected you on first viewing. So I think I know the answer, but I got to ask the question. 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. What would your ranking of Jaws be?
Oh, let's give you the full 5 on that one, just because of how terrified I was at such a young age, and then any other like related monster, like creature feature type movie scarred me like ever since. Especially like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Alligator, any of those creature type movies, Anaconda. It always gave me that like extra fear because I was so feared by a shark that it is technically possible that it could happen in real life, not like the other creatures I just mentioned. It's just going to always be at that top notch, and I could expect that people would probably have the same reaction to that movie if they saw it at such a young age and have the impact like I did.
Right. And you could even make the argument that this is one of the scariest horror movies of all time, because when it comes to an impact that it has on people, everybody, even if they've never seen the movie, they know the dun, dun. Like people know that. Like that's gonna happen. Like how many times we've been swimming and you have that one friend as they're swimming. You know what I mean? Like
or the fake shark fins.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've all done that. And I think that's amazing that this movie is that, the score itself is iconic. You have this, you have Psycho, you have Halloween. Everybody knows these scores, even if they've never seen the films. And that, I think, really is a testament to how great these films are and how influential they are, not only in our lives, but in the horror genre altogether. So, well, everybody, the credits are about to roll. We're at the end of the third act, but before they do, make sure you're clicking this Instagram link down here. Make sure you're showing her some love. Make sure you're following her, because that podcast is going to be coming eventually. So you're going to want to be on top of that the minute it comes out. So don't go anywhere, love. I got a couple more questions for you.
Oh, you got
everyone else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.